Hey everybody, and welcome to another Dorico video. Today we're going to be looking at the page templates in the Engrave tab. Now, in this series I've been doing on part and score formatting, this is one of the things that everybody's asking me questions about. I get more emails and comment questions about how to deal with these page templates than just about anything else. Dorico was designed to work much like a page layout program like Adobe InDesign. In software such as this, instead of thinking of it like a word processor where every single part of the document is active all the time, we think of it as having different layers and we work on different parts of the document in different places. Now, in the beginning, this will seem really frustrating and probably needlessly, but let me tell you, this really works great. And it is so much faster to make your parts and score look uniform, especially if you're doing something like running a publishing house. So here we are with page templates in Dorico Pro. Okay, so I've opened up my big band chart of strawberry fields again, and now we're going to be looking at the page templates. Now, when we're doing this in the Engrave tab, the thing that we need to think about the most is the fact that we are not actually changing music, we're not changing staff lines, we're not doing anything with the notation. We are only concerning ourselves with the title blocks on the top and the bottom, and then on subsequent pages, things like the page numbers and the headers. So if we go here into our Engrave tab in Dorico, we can see that on the far right side, we have a menu block that has information on the pages in our score, page templates, flow heading templates, as well as page template sets. If any of these items are hidden for you, there's a little arrow over here on the right side of your screen, and if you click it, it will make it appear and disappear. So the top area is our pages, and this is where we can see information on whether or not we've done a page override, how the page numbering works, and also the page layout. Now, you'll notice that page 1 is over here on the right-hand side of your column of pages. And you might become a little annoyed. You might think, well, page 1 should be on the left. But because Dorico thinks like page layout software, it thinks about things like a book. Traditionally, when you have a book, you'll actually have a cover page, which will show you information. And when you open that cover, you will see inside the book, the first page is on the right-hand side, and that'll be facing you. And then when you turn the page, page 2 will be on the back side of page 1. If we highlight a page, we're given options for insert a page number change, page template change, flow heading changes, and we can also insert pages as well. These options are mirrored on the bottom here with these buttons. And one important thing to note is, if we've made a manual change to our score, like I've done here adding text to my title block, you'll see now page 1 has this little red triangle on it. And what that's telling us is that we have done some kind of override to page 1, and it is no longer drawing directly from our page templates. If we would like to clear that out, we can right-click and we can remove the page override for just this page or all page overrides. So the next box down is the Page Templates menu. Now, this is the one that we're going to use the most in Dorico because this is the most important part of this whole template setup. In a typical template set, you're going to find a first template and a default template. Now, this might seem a little bit confusing, but the first template is designated as the first page of your document. So whether it's the first page of the score or the first page of a part, to edit those items in those title blocks, you're going to have to use the first page template. The default page template is for every other page after page 1. So it's page 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. Now, it is important to remember that a default document in Dorico has 2 page template sets. It has one that edits everything having to do with the header and footer of the score, and then you have everything having to do with your parts. When we double click on either one of the first page or the default templates, we're brought to the template editor. And you can see here it'll tell us that we're editing page template first, And you'll see that there's some really basic controls. We can copy whatever's on the left side to the right side and vice versa. We can apply those changes and we can close out. Down here in our working space, we really only have a couple of things. We have our title blocks, we have our music frame, and we have the ability to add additional frames if we need them. Those are by default hidden, but if you click on this little button up here, it will bring up the menu that will allow us to add additional frames to our score. Now, it's important to note the difference between the three types of frames that Dorico uses. If we go over here to our Insert Frames menu, you can see that we have three options. We have music frames, which are blue. Text frames are pretty much exactly what they sound like. We put text in there. And then finally, we have the graphics frame. If you want to put a logo on your scores, you'll have to put in a graphic frame. It's pretty easy to add a frame if you need to. If you click on the frame that you're looking for in the insert, and then your mouse pointer will turn into a crosshair. And then if you go where you want it and you draw your bounding box, I now have a frame of the type that I'm looking for. Once you've dragged out the bounding box, Dorico will insert a frame that you had selected, and now you can edit that and insert content into it. Now again, you'll see that the bounding boxes on these frames are the three different colors. So of the three different frame types, the graphics frame is the easiest one to deal with. Once we have a graphic frame into our page template, if we double click on the inside of it, it will bring up a menu that will allow us to literally insert a picture or graphic of one of the many styles that Dorico can read. Now, unlike a traditional notation software, it's important to note that the music frames can actually be broken apart. So if you were making, say, a textbook where you wanted a little bit of music and then you wanted it to flow down to the next box and the next box with text blocks in between, you can actually do that in Dorico. So if I was to take on this first page and make my first music frame smaller, and then if I was to go over here and add a second music frame lower on the page, we are given the options for how they will flow together. So in this case, you'll see up here you have these link options, and you'll see the frame chain. And so this is saying it will fill MA first, which is our top one, and then MJ, which is our second one. And because they are linked together, the music will flow from one box to another. So you can see that because I added the second frame on there, it will go ahead and it will cram in whatever was in my score, and it leaves the blank space and then goes down and does the next box. Now, this is obviously not going to work in this score, but depending on how you were setting up your score, you may want multiple frames. So back in the editor, I went ahead and undid that change. This is where we would actually make edits to things like our composer and also our copyright information, because these objects are actually drawn from the project info in Dorico. So if we go under the File menu, you'll see we have Project Info, which on a Mac is Command I. And then you'll see for our project, we have all of this different information. And anything that we enter in any of these boxes can be drawn into the score automatically. We can also assign information per the flow. So if you wanted to pull in specific information for one movement of your work over another, you can have a duplicate set of information. There's also this copy from, so if you wanted to pull in most of the stuff from your project and then change a few things, this would be a way of pulling most of it over into each of your flows. Because we're working with a template, the only things we might type into our box are static text objects, like, say, a hyphen that separates two different pieces of information. So this first large green box represents my title block. And if I double click inside of the block, you'll see it brings up this text menu that gives me all of the different text options. So let's say I was to delete everything out of my title block here. So if I go back into my title block and I was to right click, you will see a menu that pops up that gives us all of the types of automatic information that Dorico can enter. So I'm going to go ahead and put in our title here. And what you'll see is it puts in this, what they call token. Now, it's important that we don't delete any part of this token because this token, if we disturb any part of it, will not display the title. It will literally just write in literally what we wrote. So once we have this token in place, though, we can go ahead and change our paragraph style to say title, which will make it significantly larger. And then if I wanted to put the subtitle in underneath the title, I could go ahead and put a carriage return, and then I could right click again, and I could go in and I could put in my subtitle. But because the subtitle doesn't need to be as big as the title, I'm going to go ahead and change this to just my default text. Now you'll see the default text put us back on left align, so I'm going to go ahead and center align that. And then I'm also going to reduce the space between the title and the subtitle because it's kind of big in this font. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that down a little bit. And now you'll see that on the left side and the right side, my text changes have been duplicated. This is because Dorico makes left side and right side templates for all of its page templates. Now you might ask yourself, why do I need double templates? I only have one page one. And the reason is, if you were to have multiple scores in your document and a left-facing page one needed to have different requirements than a right-facing page one, then you'd need them to be different. But for most of us, no matter which side we work on, we'll want to go ahead and copy any changes we make on one side to the other side because we need them to match. Now, you can't have different texts in these different boxes. So this one box is going to be the same in both templates. However, we are able to change their alignment, meaning I could make this box much smaller on the left side template, and you'll see it will not change, but the text itself will populate. Let's say we wanted to put in the composer's dates. So I could go in and again, put in a return, and then I'm going to right click, and under my project info, I'm going to go under my composer's dates. Now, because I hadn't put in dates for my composer yet, I can go back to my project info, and then I can go ahead and I can enter in my composer dates. You'll see that the composer dates are added automatically to this text box. So again, our analogy we want to work with here is any changes we want to make to the letterhead of our score, we need to change in the template. Now, if we want to change the appearance of subsequent pages, then we need to go in and double click on the default template. Now you can see the left side and the right side are different here because the page number on the left page is on the left side and the page number is on the right for the other side. But let's say I wanted to put a total number of pages in there. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to make my page number box larger so it can accept a bigger number. And then I'm going to double click into it. And I'm going to put in a space, a hyphen, and a space. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, under my pages, I'm going to put in the page count. Now, Dorico has kind of this interesting thing where because it can't display all the text in that box at once, it does sort of hide and shroud everything. But do know that all of the typing that we did in there is actually there. And because we want this to be different on the right page, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to expand my right box here so it has room. So if I hit apply, you can see on my score now, it shows me this is 2 of 13, 3 of 13, and so on and so forth. So now that we've looked at the template set for the score, let's go ahead and go to the parts. When I make changes to the part template, it will auto-populate this to all of my parts at the same time. Now remember, this is not going to change the music spacing, the size of the music. It's not going to change any of those things because they are separate of my page template. So let's go ahead and go under my first template. And I'm going to decide that I think this looks a little bit too far down. The amount of space I left myself for my title and subtitle is just a little bit too big. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my title block and I'm going to bring it up to the top. Now, it is okay in Dorico to have boxes overlap. It doesn't affect the contents, except for there could be an instance later where a very long instrument name might bump into our title, especially if the title was very long. So you may have to adjust things slightly. Now, I also don't like how far apart project title and the project subtitle are. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into here, and I'm going to highlight my top line. Then I'm going to reduce this line spacing here to pull the two together. And I'm going to set it at about 85%. Then I'm going to bring my project arranger up and my project composer up. Now you'll see I was not able to line those two up properly. And if you're the kind of person where if it's not perfectly aligned, it drives you a little crazy, in version 6, they added this shortcut here where if we click on the eyeball, we can go to our ruler. And then you'll see when I'm dragging an object, you'll see over on the left, it shows me information about the object that I'm moving and about where it is. So you can see right now, my top is set at 1.5. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Then I can come over here and I can pull this one down until I get to 1.5 as well. You can also see that when I select the sizing bricks on the side, it'll tell me that this brick goes down to 1.5, and it also gives me the measurement. You can also drag two boxes at once if you click on a shared line. And so now when I move them both, see it pulls both of them at once. Now I could go ahead and make my music frame taller, but because this is an educational chart, maybe I want to put in a little bit of biographical information. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come in here and I am going to add a text block on this page where I'm going to put in my project info. So once I've drawn my new box, I'm going to double click, and then when I right click, it brings up my option, and I'm going to do this other information under the project info. Now you can see that my left side and right side do not match. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my left side over to my right side. Now you can see my left side and my right side match. So I'm going to apply, and you'll see that now in my part, I have my part name, my title, my subtitle, arranger, composer, and then I have this small amount of information that I got from Wikipedia on the piece of music here. And again, because we changed the template, not just the boxes in any one part, you can see when I go to Alto 2, because it is drawing from the template, it made Alto 2 look the same, it made Trombone 2 look the same. Now again, this is outside of part formatting, it's outside of system spacing and measure alignment, and so these are options that you do not have to go anywhere else to change. Now, if you had the special requirement of needing a third type of option, let's say you had a page of fingerings that had very different formatting on it, you could go ahead and you could add in a page template, which would give you a third option. So if I call this fingerings, and then you can say based on, and I'm going to set it based on default, and then I'm going to make it a custom type because I don't want it to come up very often, and then I hit OK. You can see I can now go in and I could make some big changes here, and if I had to make a large space at the top to say input an image, I could go ahead and draw in my image box on both left and right, and then when I apply, I could go into my piano part here, and let's say at page 3, I needed page 3 to have a different template. Well, here I could right-click on page 3 and put in a template change, and on page 3, for the current page only, I'm going to set this to the fingerings. And you will see it converted this page to that different template set. Now, just like on the page templates, these flow heading templates allow us to change how the music will appear when we have a flow heading added to the music. So you can see I have my flow heading here now, which is number 1 because it's the first and only movement, and then I have it entitled Big Band. So if I was to go over here under my default flow heading template, you can see that right now it's drawing from the flow number and then the flow title. but maybe I wanted to change this up. Maybe I wanted to put in some different information. So when I go ahead and I hit apply, you'll see that now it shows that we're looking at the July 22nd, 2025 version and movement 1 of Big Band. And again, because all the parts are sharing one flow heading set, when I go to the Barry Sax part and I enable the flow heading on this one as well, you'll see it draws from the same template and my flow headings will appear in the same manner. The last option here in the engrave is our page template sets. Under the layout options for any part or score, you can actually tell Dorico under page setup and page template, you can tell it which template set to draw from, which will enable you to go in and say, maybe I want all of the trumpets to actually draw from the full score template set. So now, when I go from the sax part to a trumpet part, you'll see they draw from the score template instead of the part template. So in closing on this video, whenever we want to make changes to the default text boxes in our parts and score, we should always go into the Engrave tab, and then we should edit them in the templates. The only reason to double click on one of the boxes in our part or score is if there is a very, very specific reason why this one page, not even just the part, but one page of one part, needs to have some kind of different information. If you do double click on one of these text boxes, you are met with information and this warning menu that says, hey, please don't change this because now this part will no longer be linked, and when I make a change in one place, it will not be reflected here. So I hope you've enjoyed this run through of page templates in Dorico. If you're enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps out. And keep watching this playlist. There's going to be more information on part and score formatting. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.